Yeah, take time for the photo sessions.
Ok. Questo lo punto qua o no, punto lei? No, because
Yeah, we can only be proud.
Alright, so we are all set. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your patience.
By myself.
That's time management. All right, so thank you again, and thank you for your patience. Now, what I'm going to present to you in the next 1 hour, because it's already we're a bit late, and we're going to have a break at 10:30. Correct. So the power of resilience building. Let us first try to see the global environment situation. What is happening in the world? If you look at disasters in numbers, so this is statistics. That came out in 2024, that refers to 2023. The year 2023 experienced high disaster mortality, with a total of more than 86,000 deaths, exceeding the 20-year average of 64,000 deaths at a median value of 219 deaths for the same period, mainly due to the dramatic earthquake in Turkey. Remember that hurricane in Syria? We responded that. Calis responded. Of course, Calis Australia has been part of that for that response, counting for 2/3 of the total deaths. So that is what is happening in 2023. If you take out the average, it supersedes. Now, let us try to see the occurrence of disasters. So most of these disasters don't mind so much that I'm going to share to you the slides. For those who have been in Bangkok, most of you have seen already this presentation. In terms of the type of disasters, it is more of flood. So I think we have seen that here in the Philippines, especially here in the Eastern Visayas region, wherein they are being hit by several floods. Floods are frequent, not just simply because there is a monsoon rain, but it's a combination of different sources of rain that has been happening with an intensity which is quite strong. And of course, if you look at in terms of places affected by disasters, Asia is number 1. We are all in Asia. That is why Asia is the theater of disasters. And if you notice that in Asia, the big United Nations organizations are having their base here, especially in Thailand. They are really promoting to build capacities of people to engage in such a kind of situations, because for the past 10 years, Asia is always on top in terms of the number of disasters. So, unfortunately, we are in Asia. But fortunately, we are here. You are there. There are people who desire to respond to that kind of disaster. In terms of deaths, 73.4% in Asia. That's quite high compared to its 20-year average of 50.6%. So the number of deaths is increasing. In other countries, some of these are decreasing compared to the previous occurrence. Now, there could be several reasons for that. One is the science of disaster is advancing, especially when we talk about mitigation measures. people have knowledge now and learn how to protect themselves from these disasters. What God is doing is we're trying to share the knowledge to them and build their communities so that they can protect themselves whenever a disaster happens. Okay? So you will see the impact. The other reasons why there is a reduction in terms of casualties is because they were able to rebuild their infrastructures that to protect the people. Unlike here, like in Manila, we never resolved the flood because there were some projects, budgets allocated for certain infrastructures. But with the corruption that has been happening, a lot of people drowned by the flood that happened last year. Okay? So that is the very situation. And there are some other reasons why. Now, if you look at how many are affected by disasters, again, 71.4%. Before we're talking about deaths. Now, those who are affected. Now, if you notice in Asia, there is a reduction of something like 5%. Okay, why? It's because when we talk about impacted, not necessarily directly hit by the disasters, but the nearby communities that is somehow within the range of the type of disaster that took place in the area. Because they are now prepared, well prepared. Because here in Asia, there are just so many organizations working for disaster ministry. So it works then the preparation, and it gives us hope. People believe that the different events or different hazards like typhoon, earthquake, flood, and so on and so forth, we said that it's natural. That's true. These are natural. We cannot simply avoid that. It has to happen, like an earthquake. If an earthquake will not take place, and it will take a long time to erupt that gas that is underneath the earth, then there will be a big disaster. It has to erupt so that it will be release the energy. Now, what's the problem here? If it is natural, the problem here is the government are supposed to establish the standards of the building codes. So when you construct a house in that disaster earthquake-prone area, it has to meet a certain standard. Now, if you look at the public infrastructure, they don't meet actually the standard. Look what happened to the bridge up in the north, a beautiful bridge that was just recently opened when a truck full of load passed by, it collapsed. New bridge, recently opened, it collapsed. It's because they discovered that the materials that are being used are not standard or substandard. Why? Because monies are coming out of the pockets of those who are involved. So this is one of the reasons, the political aspect. If only that was built according to the standard, many people will be saved. Take, for instance, a very classic example, the earthquake in Chile, way back in 2009, 2010, sorry. It was an 8.1. And there were only over 300 deaths. 8.1, that's it. Because Chile, they always have this strong earthquake, stronger what we have in the Philippines. We are waiting for the big one. And that is why we have regular drill. No. 8.1, there are only over 300 people died. When an earthquake happened in 2009, in 2009, Mark was there. 2009, it was only 6.45 something. So way less than the Chile. There were over 300,000 people died. Why is it that an earthquake with a lesser scale compared to the one of Chile caused hundreds of thousands of deaths? It's because of the political situation. The government is so weak that they were not able to place the proper standards And for those who have been to Haiti, the Port-au-Prince, you will see really, even, well, we have here, we call it informal centers or squatters. It's even worse there in the city of Port-au-Prince. And many of them perished during that earthquake. So, if a nation is prepared, it could save a lot of lives. Chile, we have regular earthquake drill. Here in the Philippines, we started already with earthquake drill. But the others, they do just simply mind. They don't practice because it's only the government institutions are required to enact whenever the siren starts. And of course, you have to do the publicity of earthquake. So this is something that we need to build into the minds of the people, that there's a way to prevent deaths and damages. There's a way. So because these things are not simply natural, wherein we don't have any power at all, but we have the power to prevent. And this is what Cadis is working. Now, according to studies of the epidemiology of disasters, an institution based in Germany, every year they come up with studies who are the countries that have high risk. For the past 3 years, Philippines is number 1 at high risk. Number 1, at least we're number 1. You could just imagine. Second is Indonesia. Third is India, Colombia, Mexico, Myanmar, Mozambique, the Russian Federation, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Peru, PNG, Madagascar, Somalia, Yemen. The top 50, more than 60% are countries where we, Cabilians, are present. We are there. Philippines, Indonesia, India, Colombia, Mexico, the top 5. The message that I would like to communicate, that we would not just simply close our eyes and not do something, because the cause of inaction will really create huge damage and cause a lot of lives of the people. Kabila that's not our ministry, because we are for the sick people. Sick are suffering. And if you look at in these countries, most of the poor sick, they are not in the hospitals. They don't have access to healthcare. Even here, we have universal healthcare. But very few still have access to these services. Of course, in the highly developed countries like Australia and others in Europe, they have access. But most of these countries, they don't have access to health services. Now, if you look at the nature, characteristics, and dynamics of these disasters, you will see that they are all interconnected. So what are some of the aspects here? Here, like the political aspect, the economic, the social aspect, health aspect, they are all interconnected. Okay? So, this is very important also in our ministry. We have really to apply systems thinking. Because if you don't apply that one, you might be able to resolve this aspect, but later, whenever a disaster happens again, you will return to the same situations that we have. So it is a work that is collaborative. It is not just only work of the chameleons, but we need to collaborate. Because other organizations are experts in dealing with political issues. Other are experts in dealing with economic. We are in the health aspect. Okay, so these are all interconnected. That is why there is a need for a coordinated, collaborative response to disasters. Okay, so interconnectedness is the very philosophy that Pope Francis is bringing in here when he talks about Laudatus Si. That is why he's promoting for ecological conversion, because anything the sins that you committed, and not just simply talking in moral sins, but even social, political sins. Even though an individual commits that sin, it has an impact on others. You have to say that what the bad things that you do will not affect only to yourself, but it will have an effect on others. This is what interconnectedness is all about. That is why anything that happens, a disaster that happens in a particular context, and for those people who are there and involved and wherever they are also responsible. We are responsible to this people. You cannot just simply say, well, at least we're not affected, only then. No, because the storms like here in the Philippines, typhoon and storms are very prevalent. These are all caused by humans. Pope Francis called it anthropogenic sources or anthropogenic reasons for the disaster. Anthropo, human. We cause this disaster. The little things that we don't know will have an impact on others. Let's start from our home. How do we dispose our garbage? How do we dispose our garbage? The government now is already insisting on segregations. But do we segregate? That's one thing. The use of plastic. The microplastics, Philippines is among the highest users of microplastics. And these microplastics are entering into our bodies that can cause other kinds of diseases. So these things is, well, in some cities, they have laws now, no more plastics in the supermarkets, only paper bags. But of course, there are those who oppose this, especially those who are in the industry of plastics. That is why they try to devise plastics that are biodegradable. But these are quite expensive. Not all have access to this biodegradable plastics. So little things that we can do perhaps at the domestic level, the family, we can educate people to do that. So garbage disposal. Identify what garbages you have in the house. These are physical garbage. I'm not talking about the moral garbage that you have. Okay? So that's another thing. So they have to really see into that and work on that. So whenever you address certain resilience building projects in certain areas, you can think that way. Okay. Now, I just would like to point out one more important thing: the health aspect. Health is very important whenever a disaster happens. If the health infrastructures collapse, where do the people go? The wounded and so on and so forth. Now, here, the worst thing that happens actually when it comes to health is the aspect of mental health. This is something that we don't see. The physical aspect is the wounds. We can see blood, wounds, injuries, and so on and so forth. But the mental side, we don't normally see. And this is, I think, the worst. Some studies that this is the worst impact of disaster. The worst of all, those who are very much affected according to studies are the children. The children bear most of the consequences of the mental health effect of disasters. There was a study that why do people in Africa, a lot of children are poor because they don't have access to education. It's not because they don't have school. It's because they're not, when they reach at the age of 15, 16, their cognitive development is already affected and they're not motivated to study. And because also of poverty, their parents don't send them to study but work because they have to survive. Situations like that we have also here in Asia, in the Philippines. So this is something that we have to see and do. What can we do? We have already several experiences here of mental health intervention. Father Dan maybe you could talk to Father Dan, okay? BPHCS and so on and so forth, because we have the Yolanda, the strongest typhoon ever on record, that category 5. Since Yolanda, several times that came in are already category 4 and 5. It became now the standard typhoon here. In the worst now, we are also having now tornadoes. In the United States, they're having tornado in these days, wherein over 30 people died. Okay? We have now tornadoes in the Philippines. We call it the hipo-hipo. So these things that seldomly we see is already happening now in the different places. So, because of climate change. Okay, now, how are you going to assess, how do they assess then the risk? How do they know that Philippines is at high risk? It's a very complicated thing, but I don't have to go through one by one because that's not our work. Our work is to research and find this document, study, because they are being simplified in such a way that we will be able to understand the real situations. So just using the formula of the World Risk Index equals exposure plus vulnerability. You see, there are two factors that you will see that this country, this place, this barangay is at risk. Exposure to hazards. How are they exposed? People are living along the sea coast, the coastline. Many of these fishermen, they don't have a house that are quite strong whenever the waves are happening. Now, the storm surge is already recurrent here in the country. I heard of storm surge when Yolanda happened. That is over 10,000 people died. The storm surge, before we call it tidal waves. People are familiar with that. But when the news came out with storm surge, people didn't mind because they do not know what storm surge is all about. Now we know after Yolanda. Okay. So these are some of the things that many people living along the coastline, they are exposed to this kind of disasters. And mind you, here in Asia, there is now a rise of the sea level. Bangladesh is very much prone now. That is why we have floods almost every day, because the sea is rising. Because also of the glaciers in the north are already melting. So all these things goes to here. Unfortunately, we are here in the Pacific. We always host all these type of disasters. These are disasters that is not caused by our own, but caused by the big industrial countries. Because the impact of this, the climate change, the use of fossil fuels. A lot of industries in the world are fueled by fossil fuel. And these are emitting a lot of carbon in the air. But you know, the air is not contained only in their country. That goes wherever the wind favors. And we are the one on this hosting. And here we have Pacific Ocean, the huge ocean, with the rising temperature, the heat. It meets also with the cold weather, then that will create the typhoon. It can be reduced, yes. Now, the conference of parties in the past, last year, the other year, they're not talking of arresting the carbon. But it's not a solution. This is a business actually. You arrest the carbon by planting trees in such an area, but actually, because they are having, it's not just only planting of trees here, because they are harvesting carbon in order to make it another source of energy. They are harvesting this not just to protect the people, but it has really to fuel more business. So these are quite complicated. But what I'm going to try to say here, that you have to look how exposed the people to disasters and how vulnerable the people. When we talk about vulnerability, there are different aspects of vulnerability. Physical, economic, social, political, even spiritual vulnerability. That's why we have to look at it as a system. You don't have just to look at it on a single aspect, because we will be just simply wasting our money. because it will not drive change in the communities affected by this disaster. So start thinking that way. How does this project would impact the other aspects of the life of the people in that community? You will see more experiences with that later, when these people who are affected by our projects is going to talk to you, to talk to us, and give their own personal testimonies. Well, climate change, I think there's just a lot of talks on climate change. Okay, this is actually, if you notice, just to note, looking up here, no, from the year, the pre-industrial to the industrial age, and then starts to increase and rise up. Okay, the trend. Okay, and this is already impacting a lot. No? Like in 2023. The mean temperature over Asia was 0.91 degrees centigrade, which is above the 1991-2020 reference period. So the second highest on record. And last year, 2024, is declared as the hottest year. So now it's already now going up. And here in this country, we used to declare no classes when there is a typhoon. Now they declare no classes because of the heat. Because the heat index is reaching up to 50 to 55. And you know, you have experienced that yesterday. You have been able to grasp your breath. And this is, we could expect that we are going towards that until we reach really the breaking point, and that's a point of no return. Now, there are a lot of things actually that we can do, but maybe we're not that very much conscious of. The gadgets that we use, we have a lot of gadgets. This is powered by batteries. Where are these batteries coming from? And when it is being drawn, because my cell phone now is not already the model of the year, I have to throw it and change. All this cycle will have an impact on our environment. So, try to see and read a lot of articles written on this. What is ecological conversion? This is what we need right now. This is what we need right now. We have to start from our very own life. Start from your lifestyle. From my experience, from what we observe, the happiest people that I have seen in my life, they're indigenous people. Not just because they are simple, not just because they don't have big ones, but because they're conscious that what they're doing will have an impact on the environment. Yesterday, Ma'am Christie talks about that all things in nature have spirits. And that is why the people, the pre-colonial Spanish people, we call them animals, they pray to the trees. And sometimes we just laugh at these people because they are still in the primitive culture. But you have to understand, they were right. Why? Because they want to appease nature, the spirit that is in that kind, in that person, in that tree, or in that stone, so that it will not become angry and will take revenge on you. Now, does it really, what I'm trying to drive out here, the belief that whatever you do to nature will have an impact on others. If you don't respect nature because nature has a life, there is a priest of the Columban missionaries in Lanao, in Mindanao. He made a study that the trees have 99%, they said the DNA of the trees is 99% the same with the DNA of the human person, a human being. This is quite interesting. He published a book, okay? The Columban missionary. He presented that to the Vatican during the celebration of the Laudato Si'. It's quite interesting. But how many people are convinced with that status? We still continue because of the interest, especially of the big capitalist industries. Because the capitalists in this world, they are not looking for distributing services or products, but more and above all, it's profit. They are not profits, they are profits of doom. But because they are what they want is profit. You want to earn. Okay? Earning is not a sin. If you invest, you need to earn. But what you earn is more than enough to what you need. And this is in the social teachings of the church. This is already getting what should belong to others. That's robbery. Now, this is what the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization says. Extreme weather events, conflicts, and pandemics overlap and amplify each other. You see, they're all interconnected. Disaster resulting from extreme natural events can trigger or escalate armed conflicts. You see, from natural to non-natural disaster, armed conflicts. Especially with poverty, ethnic exclusion, like what happened in Manipur. Poverty, ethnic exclusion, past political violence, or weak state institutions are already present. In Haiti, it's really a mess in Haiti right now because there's no government that exists. Of course, there are hundreds of millions of people being affected. But the Haiti is run by gangs. And not only one gang, but several gangs, different regions, because the government has no control. And of course, it's the people who are suffering. And she said, we are at a critical juncture where the impact of climate change intersects with societal inequalities. It is imperative that our actions and strategies mirror the urgency of these times. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions and adapting to the evolving climate is not merely an option, but a fundamental necessity. What we are doing is not merely an option, but this is a fundamental necessity. Scientists says biodiversity at risk. Biodiversity sustains us. It underpins the food we eat, the water we drink, and the oxygen we breathe. Anthropogenic environmental changes, including changes to biodiversity, are increasing the risk of infectious disease and outbreaks. Maybe Ebola, COVID are already fruits of this destruction of our biodiversity. I remember in Sierra Leone, Marcos was there. Marco has been a partner, a brother, no, with comedians ever since. No? So I'm so grateful for his presence here. Thank you, Marco. When we were in Sierra Leone during the Ebola, there are different myths regarding the Ebola. But anyway, how does the virus spread? Quickly, just a matter of few days. They discovered that the virus stays in the bats, no? This kind of birds. Okay? So they can host the virus for quite so long time. It can survive this virus because that kind of virus will die if they cannot find a better host. Okay? It so happened that these bats are already spreading out into the communities. Why? Because their habitat were already destroyed. So their tendency is to fly up and find and to survive. But the people in Sierra Leone and other are so hungry, they find it edible, and so they catch the bats. And the bats carrying the carrier of this virus is already transmitted. And then they have this, well, majority are Muslims. And the Muslims they have this tradition For them, their belief is that the most important moment of the life of the person is death. That is why whenever there is funeral, everybody, all the relatives coming from far, they come to celebrate the funeral. They embrace the body and kiss the cadavre. And that is why when they come back, they are already carrying the virus because they do not know that that person died of Ebola. That it was so quick. Now, the worst thing that happened, people in Bangkok, when we decided to go to Ebola, because the bishop of Sierra Leone in Makeni asked for some help. So it so happened that through Facebook, could help a lot. I was able to find that one Siberian priest is from Samar, and he works, Father Patrick, and he works in Sierra Leone during the height of the Ebola. And so when I saw that, I communicated to him, and the mother is a late Comedian family member. So that is the story. I came to Sierra Leone. I realized that the Ebola was already spreading out as early as February, but when a European was infected in September, it became a public issue that caused for public concern. It became a pandemic. Okay? So there was this comment. It's because a white one was infected. This started already. The WHO declared as the pandemic of pandemic. That could really, and that is why many restrictions are being done. But just before the declaration in September, even the previous year, many already infected and died. And it's even worse there because the healthcare system is poor. They don't have access. And the worst thing that I've seen that I could hardly accept, but without mentioning them, many of the religious congregations, they decided to leave the country in the midst of the Ebola. And most of the people, even though they are not Catholics, they believe in the missionaries. But most of the missionaries, they are gone. They went home because their superior generals told them to get out of the country. The people are supposed to serve. They're gone. That is why the project of CARIS was to rebuild the hope of the people through the community-based psychosocial facilitator program. We organized some of the Muslims to be the pastoral caregivers based in the palace. They're being trained. And not only that, we supported also the laboratory and placed there a machine that can already detect Ebola virus, which there were only 3 in the country. So these are some of the things, no? The physical aspect and the pastoral aspect, they are combined to help these people. This is just a case of the destruction of biodiversity have left a gross impact. And of course, Pope Francis. The world at the breaking point. Since I published the encyclical Laudato Si, I have realized that our responses have not been adequate while the world in which we live is collapsing and maybe nearing the breaking point. It is indubitable that the impact of climate change will increasingly prejudice the lives and families of many persons. Its effects in the areas of healthcare, sources of employment, access to resources, housing, forced migration, etc. Certain apocalyptic diagnoses may well appear scarcely reasonable or insufficiently grounded. This should not lead us to ignore the real possibility that we are approaching a critical point. And this is the breaking point. Once we reach, now, he was not just talking as a pope here, because what he talks is very much founded on science. Okay, he gets a lot of when he wrote Laudato Si, he met several scientists. And in the Vatican, we have also our scientists, no? The Pontifical Academy of Science. We have scientists and experts. So it doesn't mean that the church concerns only with the spiritual. No, how the church is organized is integral services that is given. We engage in science, even in astronomy. Well, the Jesuits here, they have their own observatory. So because these are things that are very important to protect the lives of the people and to promote their dignity as a person. So what Callis is trying to share is we developed this, our theory of change. And the theory says, if the poor and disaster vulnerable communities, that is our target beneficiaries, that Callis is assisting are transformation into empowered, building their capacities, and ecologically converted, resilient communities. Then, development in these communities will occur. If we will not touch this aspect, we believe that these people will not develop. The worst thing now in our country is that people are not empowered, but they are just manipulated by the different ayuda, acts, and so on and so forth. Don't ask. This will not develop people's capacity. This will develop dependence on the politicians. This is political patronage because election is about to come. So this is what is happening. I guess in your own realities, there's such a kind of thing also. So some of the governments, instead of empowering people, they are making them subservient and dependent to their services that is given to them. And that is why here, we both people, those who can give bigger amount, we sell our books. Unfortunately, because they are also poor, they need also to survive, and they are being thought that after all, what you are receiving is the taxes that you pay to the government, so that belongs to you. And they're not just looking at the act of buying their votes, but the money that they receive from the politicians. This is quite dangerous because we are developing people who are always dependent on somebody else instead of empowered. So this is something what resilience building is all about. We need to transform communities, build their readiness and capacity, empowered communities actively participating in strengthening. This is also important. When we do projects on resilience building, we let people on the ground, those who will be affected by the project, the program, to participate in building up the project proposal. So from the proposal building up to the implementation and evaluation, people are asked. People are listened. Because more often, we thought that they don't have resources than we have, but they have more resources than you have. Because the biggest resources that we have are the people itself. And these people are there in communities affected by disaster. If you facilitate, they will move. The only thing, if no one facilitates, of course, they're confused. They don't know what to do. They're in the midst of the disaster. But if somebody is facilitating for certain projects of accompaniment, and I think this is our big work as Christians, people will move and take out their resources. Come to think of, in the gospel, the miracle, the multiplication of the fish and the bread. It was not just a mathematical multiplication, because it was not a magic. Christ cannot do that. Killing 5,000 and just boom, all the bread was multiplied and the fish now. He challenged the people. You have been traveling and following me. You must have your own provision, which is more than what you need. Take it out and share it with others. And they were able to collect even extra baskets of food. This is what miracle is all about. Sharing. Because our life in the first place is a life of sharing. Following the Sendai framework, we're now talking about here on the science of disaster, which is the framework is reduce exposure and vulnerability, thus preventing the creation of new disaster risks, and accountability for disaster risk creations are needed at all levels. So we have to make people accountable, of course, the government, to the situations that has been happening to the different disasters. Somebody has to respond, and somebody has the primary responsibility. But we could not make these people accountable if we don't organize from the ground. Because people normally, they are just simply afraid, or they don't have knowledge of know-how on how to do that. Build their communities. So in order to reduce exposure and vulnerability to the disasters. Okay? So this is what we call disaster management to disaster risk management. So we don't just manage the disaster when it happens, but managing the risk. So already looking at this community is at risk of this kind of disaster, then work on that. So that whenever that disasters occur, they will be protected. There are now a lot of technologies that can be done actually, that can be shared to people. Even the use of cell phones is very important, and it saves a lot of lives whenever a disaster happens. Okay? Pre-announcements is very important. Of course, in a community, it should be taught where are the escape route from. No? Whenever a flood happens, they have to run in this way. Because many of these people, if they're not aware what to do, because if you're in the midst of disaster, it's really very difficult to act soundly because you are being affected. That is why we need to train leaders in the community who can mobilize and facilitate the community so that whenever an alarm departs, people know where to run, where to go. Okay. I remember Yolanda in Tacloban. When there was this strong typhoon, Yolanda, many people were evacuated in the gymnasium, the basketball court of the city. And that gymnasium was built just along the coast. And so when the storm surge happened, many of them died who were evacuated. Can you imagine? They were evacuated to escape from the beast, but they were the ones who perished in that event. Who to blame for this thing? Could have been saved. So if we have, okay, let me just pause for a while for a video. That's already almost 10:30. What disaster resilience starts where disaster resilience starts where we live. Anyway, we'll just have time for that for later because I don't want to waste my time. So if we accept that disasters are neither natural nor inevitable, then we must work to prevent or at least to reduce their impact. Okay? There are certain situations we could not simply prevent, but at least to reduce their impact. We have also this disaster forensics approach. Okay? First is understand the disaster, the DNA of disaster. Okay? What is in that disaster? How do you understand that? First, understand what happened. Second, identify the root causes and risk drivers. That is when you go to the community, do your assessment, you have to identify and answer this question. What are the root causes of this disaster? Why is it that flood is happening here? I remember in Saogon Leyte, St. Bernard, that landslide that somehow erased the entire village. Maybe you don't remember, this is 2007 or 2006, 2007. When that happened, they were saying that this is the will of God. And there was a big poster there that God's wrath, naniningil na ang Diyos sa inyo. God is now asking you to pay in return. So I was asking, but why is it this thing? He said that, Father, before this is a very simple village, but many were able to find jobs because a lot of people here are overseas workers, seaman. So seaman, so they earn a lot. And so they were able to improve their communities and they start to having video hockey bar, have houses in the area, and they said, now God is punishing them. So quiet and simple place, they turned it into a place where a lot of all these vices are happening, they are being punished. I said, well, many were convinced that they are indeed punished. So what we did with our team to doing assessment, while our medical team from Calvario, we do the medical care of the survivors. We called the oldest people in the barangay. So we met 3 of them among the oldest in the barangay. It's a small village after. We asked them, but how do you look at this when you were still young in these mountains around? They said they were full of trees here. But when they start cutting logs, and who cut the logs? Indrili. Indrili is from the north. And he's cutting logs from the south. Indrili is, he was the minister. All the logs here were cut. And they transformed the mountain into an abaca plantation. That is why many also were earning well because they planted with abaca. So the mountain used to be filled with trees. They transformed it to abaca. Abaca is a kind of hemp, for making our clothes. So many are earning well. But when they change the contour of the mountain, by planting this kind of things that could not hold the water, the process. That is what happened because the soil is already impacted. It could not hold anymore the water because the trees are no more, and the abaca is just like a banana tree. And they were just wiped out, and the entire village was over. When we arrived there, just to let us know how deep the mud is buried, we were saw a tree, coconut tree. And that, in Lake, the coconuts are very tall. And that coconut tree, you can just pick the fruits without lining it. That's how deep. It was kind of 16 meters of mud that buried the whole village. If you go to Binsaogon, totally, the areas totally changed. I passed by there just 2 years ago when I was driving from Bohol to Tagla. Since we passed by that area, I really need to see how are the people there in St. Bernard in Saogon. This is all those people, 700 of them, many of them were students because many of them went to school because it was morning. Children were in school and the school was totally buried. A lot of innocence. And that is why the next question is, why do God allows this thing to happen to innocent children? If they are being punished, why He punish the children? That's a theological question, but does not need any philosophical answer. It doesn't need. They just want somebody who could listen to them because that is an agony that they've been experiencing. They would like to express. And here our word comes. Listening to these people would heal a lot of their agonies. So, who and what was expressed and why, exposed and why? Who was impacted and why? So these are 4 questions under understanding the disaster DNA. And then the second is pinpoint what is resilient and why. So the tools can be deployed to prevent impacts, where people inform about the risk, not the disaster, but the risk, where they inform. Because if they're informed, then most likely they will not perish. Consider the trends and projections and apply to future filter to refine action. What actions can you take to avoid disaster, and so on and so on. So we have several actually experience of resilience building. Okay, this is just a tree where the one on the right side is green and the other side is dry. Because this is the one impacted by disaster, they're at risk, and then the other side is well protected. Okay. And then we have several of these resilience building practices. The first one is Haiti. During the post-COVID, we assisted the youth, especially the women, to have an income generating because these are vendors. When COVID happened, they were not able to sell because it's not allowed. And so after that, they lost already their source of livelihood. So to regain what they lost, we need to train them to engage with another skills so that they will be able to survive and earn. We have here an example of the urban poor here, the health resilience building here in Cebu. There's a beautiful video, but I guess we will show that to you later. They produced a very nice video. Then Ukraine, war refugees. Okay, we still have right now 72 families, Ukrainian refugees. We have been assisting them from the very beginning when the war broke out, when Russia attacked Ukraine. A year after, I came to Ukraine, Doriana. Doriana is a Ukrainian. She speaks Ukrainian. She has been there for so many times, Marco. So they are working, Missionary Calcutta is working in that area in Ukraine, where the war is going. So I went there for a week or more, just to meet some of these internally displaced people. This is also quite challenging because these people are coming from the north or east. They are entering west. We have a totally different culture because the west, they are Ukrainians, they said. And the east, they are Russian because of the language. So they learn more Russian, they can understand better Russian, but they are being attacked by the Russians. So when they move towards the other side, and even in Poland, this is also a very big challenge. How to communicate to them? Because they don't understand, very few understand English. Many of them can understand Russian, and we have people, Polish people who understand Russian, but they resist to communicate in Russian. It's because they're being attacked by Russia. So how are you going to resolve? They don't like to talk. You really accompany until we were able to succeed. Now we are already in our third year of assisting them, building their capacities. Many of these women, they have difficult finding jobs in Poland. Anyway, these families, they lost already all their houses in Ukraine because they come from the hotspot of the battle. So they cannot go home, so they decided to remain in Poland. It's a nearby country, but they are not familiar with the culture. So we try to help them to get adjusted and get integrated into the culture of the Polish society. Then we start training them with the language so that they can communicate and find jobs. And then when they started already communicating, they were able to find jobs. They started already working because many of them are professionals. Okay? We have one obstetrician, Anya. So you will find all these testimonies on our website. She's a mother who survived with 2 children, small children. She doesn't know her husband's still alive because male Ukrainian below 18 years old, they can travel, but above 18 years old, they cannot go out of Ukraine. Okay. When I arrived there, passing to Romania, so when I presented my passport, and I saw it's a Filipino passport, I said, the officer, but what are you going to do in Ukraine? A Filipino going to Ukraine. But anyway, you're Filipino, fine, go. So what is the business of a Filipino entering Ukraine? So that was a very exciting moment, to tell you honestly. When I saw already the border and all these placards of soldiers who died, okay, and really recognizing their hero vision. There was another conflict also here, because those in the West, they are the ones sending soldiers to the East to fight against the Russia. And then the Eastern people who evacuate because they were being attacked by the Russians, they are being hosted by the Western people. Now, after, of course, they were so very accommodating. But after a year, those people in the East, the West, started to question, my God, these people are using our resources. But they're not doing anything, but they're just drinking, becoming alcoholics. They don't understand that people, a person who is coming from such a kind of situation, many of them engage in alcohol. Many of them engage in alcohol as a coping mechanism. But they're not being understood. So they have difficulty of finding jobs and living with the people in the West because they are afraid that they will be attacked. So they escape from their place because they are being attacked. Now, so the place where they are also afraid of being attacked. So things like this are a bit complicated. You have to think up really on how you could be of help to these people. Of course, the indigenous people, as I was saying, this is Thailand, Vietnam, sorry, and Thailand. We have very beautiful experience up there in the northern side of Thailand. It's very interesting how the people practice agriculture because organic matters, organic lifestyle in that area is very much common. How they were able to live. They practice communal farming and rotational farming. They don't cultivate the land until it cannot produce anymore. They let the land rest. And we are now in the Jubilee period. The message of Jubilee. Jubilee is not just simply a celebration scheme, but it is freedom of the slaves. It is freedom of the land. Because the land has life and it needs to rest. But because of the capitalists who would like just to get profit from the land, they are already polluting the land using inorganic materials. And of course, the land reaches its height, it cannot produce anymore. But these people, they do rotational farming. They farm, the communal farming, they do it here, the next year they do it there. So for 5 rotations, they were able to save for several years 1 piece of land. And when you go back there, still the nutrients of the soil is fertile and still producing. And the second thing that I was also struck, because he said, the young ones nowadays, pardon to the young ones, they live with what they want. I want this. That is why they need to have more because I want this. But we live with what is necessary for us to live a healthy life, to live a simple life, a peaceful life. And this is what we need in today's world. We were being educated then with these people, indigenous people. As Ma'am Christie yesterday, she was telling us about this thing. There's a lot of things that they can educate us. When we come to them, normally we thought that these people are here, we call it uncivilized. It is a very degrading thing. They are not uncivilized. They are more civilized than you. Because civilization does not depend on the structures that is in place. But civilization talks about the life of the people, how they were able to maintain their community with peace and harmony. If there's that, there's also production that they can survive in their day-to-day needs, then that area is civilized. And you will see that in the indigenous people, they do it. But sometimes they're also being accused of using our resources and not doing something because they're not producing a lot of things. Because it's not in their culture to produce and produce, but for them to produce enough for your needs. So that we will be able to sustain the one that is giving us. You see, the interconnectedness is very much present. So, up to here, so thank you so much. I think we went 15 minutes more. I'm sorry for that. We have to break for a while and then maybe we can go up for some questions if you have. Otherwise, we'll proceed to the next topic. Let's take a break. Yeah. Yes. Those who are affected, those who will be affected, things are this was the silver are right, but Oh, thanks, I'm because I don't know if it's right. There's too much bureaucracy that somehow. Then after all, not just somebody but you will be able to change your time. That this work will be very important. And you can respond. That is what this is something long term. How you what they did what can be this is our goal. You are actually
I really believe that as well. When people are
sometimes we have you know, we are expert at this, but if you don't talk so much, knowledge is that is very important. But let me feel that we are not just only the let them the donors feel that when we are doing more they are this will help them think during change, we came up that after a series of consultations with from the so maybe I would just ideas for and we are all convinced that yes, if you want to development, then you have to start. Very important. So, work of 7 years, and then that from there we develop all of that. This is what we're trying to say now. We will have We're going to talk on it later on. So, and then the day after tomorrow, the pieces are on the so it's not just only installing the cooler starting scene. We're to put the that is in market price. I will say it will find you will see that. This is under the care of the science process of Sisters, they are very far away. Another, yeah, but the car right here. Come on. But take back 1 hour by from here by boat. Yes, we'll have a why?
Because I saw that in a situation where it's for tsunamis, earthquakes, and it's actually hundreds. So it's actually gets a long
So they said that we are waiting
Yeah.
That's our own one.
You name it, we have it. That's not a protection. Five, that's that's not managed by humanitarian. Here, it's a good thing that Philippines came out already with hazard maps. They have, I think we accomplished already with hazard maps. So you know where the hazards are. The reason are. But then the stuff, what is in there, the Thomas is doing something. So can make use of that, no, it's for free. What we did here is there was something that you see how they really. But don't just look at what is but try to feel how the people feel about there's it is something totally different. Looking at the whole situation, yeah, but still a court, rather, celebrate, smile, and jokes going on.
The people in this complex. So in parang like you see let's say
The problem is people are conditioned of the violence. But they are being produced by the movies that you know how to project the movie. So these are some of the things that somehow is wrong. But it's still the violence. Like not all of them are violent. Many of them are good. That's a child is not this first design to play with them. Everybody was so afraid of past time. That was still during the time when the artists was really searching for good value. The volunteer was thought I was missing past. There was the thought that, you know, it's really, it's a highest thought. But I had a right past that. It's a country with rich in terms of culture. So you have that, because of the media.
It's just like in a short run, we don't know, like, they're all, this is the action.
Precisely. Unfortunately, the battle. So. I will try to find out. To change what's not. They're not being here, they're going to do speculation. So, through the analysis that we somehow. So in that, people have the resources. I don't have the simply poor. But the biggest challenge here, because when you start building this kind of thing, this, of course, the military started by this. That's why communists, you know, yes, something like that. So that's part of the job. It's really happening. You know how in the life you do good things. Kind of revolutionary. That's one thing really big even by the church, church people, sisters or they, there are several because these are people working. But how many kind of that those who are really is not benefits, but they destroy their hearts. I think that's not that's right. There are not
No matter what.
It's like a mindset as well. The government is still not scared of the position that they are.
But it's like, I'm not going to school. It's been something. So you're something. Another word. Yeah, but we're together. Yeah. Never thought that it was a big thing. The fun thing for years. We were having different households. Last year, we got me or the green areas. Of course, with its presence, it starts to we're the ones who speak up every day. There are some doubts. In 20 minutes, tawag na ako. Magsugod na tayo. Kinain natin kagabi.
Mati na lang ako nagbayad. Mati na ako nagbayad. Hindi ko sumalo. Kasi naman pa kaya sa iyo.
Ako muna. All right, so in the next 1 hour, we're going to listen on our behalf most likely. A testimony, a case study coming from the communities here in Cebu. And we have here people, the leaders of the communities that are with us. But first, we'll try to see the video first that I was planning to show to you. Tinatay ko yung live.
Sa YouTube na lang. Kasi
Okay lang mo. Wala na naman tayo ano. Tapos na yung ating pinatay ko na yung live. I switch off the live.
Okay. Pero noon lang kapag kabibili slide, sama pagkakali slide,
All right, so we're going to watch here the video production coming from the communities of Cebu, building resilient urban poor communities.
So, yeah, what do you know? What do you know? That's not getting like, like more than anything else, like, the constant threat of disaster. City of you. City Laos. City of Tierra Dulce. And City of Alcatilla. Each a tapestry of resilience woven into the threads of vulnerability. These communities, characterized by vulnerable housing structures, congested environments, and inadequate drainage systems, are acutely susceptible to fires and floods. But amidst these challenges, the spirit of hope flickers, fueled by a project aimed at building disaster-resilient communities.
Ako si Rochelle Masagol, nalindig sa sitio ng kami sa sitio. Nagsaysay ako sa kapag-isang nalintang ay nasunupan kami sa mga tulog. Ang mga problema sa 2003, hanggang sa 2018, yan, nagpapagod ako sa 2022. Ako pinagsunod sa 2022, ngayon lamang pinag-sunod. Sa karoon, public kami, nag-rebuild na sa video, balik sa among palimalay ang parang problema. Hindi kami mga pa-afford, makapalit ang mga mahalang na materialis, mga mga makaya, mga plywood, mga light materials. Kani mga light materials, kaya po din siya masunod. Tamo po din mga nabot ang practice. Project niya itong Hunyo 23, kauban sa Design Primary Healthcare. Ang mga project mga sister risk management. O sana ang sa pagkikay sa sunod o pag-prevent sa
Maliliga, president sa Tikinan, Pabrilya din sa Association, nalilupit kami katong sa Liti, hindi kami sa Pasig, ng Baling. Kaning lugar ako sa Kamungkod, dahil hagkakoy din ng mga sambot, so ang ipotol, ang ipanghapasan para makatukod kami balay. Kami na po na nagtukod sa among balay, walay tapang sa gobyerno, walay dalan, walay tubig, ang association ang pagama o tubig o suga. Tungkol kaya kami sa ilan sa Mungkod, mahalo kami sa mga landslide, sa mga baka. Katiman sa among asosasyon sa Sitila West Basel Women's Association. Nalipay kami ng mga kaya ng trade, ang mga people sa disaster preparedness o prevention. Kung delikado kami hindi, sa sulod kumutay, sikit-sikit ang among kapalayan. Kung dahis kung di kayo, kung magpaka ay ang mga tao patatagal na sa mga basura. O doon sa bisa sapa. Kasi pala sa Tiramusin sa Sisyo, yung committee. Ang among asosasyon, nagkakabayay sa PPS para ang aning proyekto sa disaster preparedness prevention.
The project is a collaboration between the Visayas Primary Healthcare Services, the Chameleon Disaster Service International, the four associations in City Wangyu, City Nacavilla, City Laos, and City of Tierra Dulce, with the support of the Italian Bishops' Conference. The project was also endorsed by Cebu Archbishop Jose S. Palma. The project also got support from the local government units of the four barangays with the signing of the Memorandum of Agreements with the barangay captains. Project focuses on empowering the four communities through capacity building and knowledge transfer. Workshops and seminars on community-based disaster management and participatory assessment on climate and disaster risk equip leaders of the associations the skills and awareness needed to mitigate risks and respond effectively to emergencies. Taking care of the environment through proper garbage disposal and cleanup drives, and proper waste management to prevent floods. The people respond to the Laudato Si Action Platform, resulting from Pope Francis' encyclical Laudato Si, which emphasizes the need for ecological conversion and the care for our common home.
Umaabot mo sa mga katawan sa pag-acting sa kalikasan.
By promoting proper waste disposal and reducing littering, the people take a sense of responsibility and ownership of their environment and promote sustainable living. Good health of the people needs to be maintained in order to avoid sickness when disasters occur. Should they get sick, they need to have proper health care, privilege which many cannot afford due to financial constraints. Therefore, there is also a need to empower the community in terms of primary health care and first aid. Basic health skills training were conducted in December 2023 for the health committees. Because of the skills that they obtain, the community health workers are actively rendering health services to their fellow residents in the four communities.
Ako si GPS Maraga, usa ka community health worker. Ang great ko na training o nag-empower ka na ako ng mga community health worker. Nahimok ka rin og suga sa paglaom mo kayo nga naghatag mga kinahanglan mo nga sa community o nag-promote sa mga community care practices. Dili lang kami nag-atiman sa mga sakit, nag-empower kami sa among komunidad, aron makuha ang control sa ilang kahimso, kini nga mga herbal remedies nalipasa kita sa mga henerasyon na nakakagpasagol, affordable na healthcare service yun.
Their impoverished state and lack of savings for emergency use greatly deters them to cope with the immediate and extreme need for food after a disaster. Therefore, the project shall also promote food security among the residents through the development of livelihood programs in the communities that shall earn them additional income. The project had a training on asset-based community development, which focuses on identifying the existing skills, strengths, talents, and resources among the residents. The project has ignited a spark of collective action, revitalizing membership in people's organizations and fostering a sense of solidarity. It has empowered communities to advocate for their rights, address their concerns, and effect positive changes in their lives. The journey towards building disaster-resilient communities is an ongoing one, fraught with challenges and uncertainties. But in these four communities in Cebu City, the seeds of resilience have been sown, nurtured by a spirit of collaboration, empowerment, and unwavering hope. As they face the future, they do so with knowledge that they are not alone, that together they can weather any storm.
Proyekto nakita ng ang dako sa panag-iusap ang kusog sa komunidad. Nakikita naman iba sa sirkunstansya. Hindi yung pinagpalit sa kausapan. Hindi tinasal kami sa mga pagkalimong
We are no longer victims of circumstance, but agents of change.
Tonight on TBS this week.
That's the news. It's a very powerful words. We are no longer victims of circumstance, but agents of change. This is what we call transformation. They were transformed. And I think if we have more communities like that, we will be able really to give solutions to the pressing issues in the environment, in the society, where most of these people are living. So, to substantiate what we have seen in the video, we have here those people who were in that video. We're going to spiritualize and learn things in faith. It was the one who said, we are no longer victims of circumstance, but agents of change. And
May tanan. Today is Margaret Palacio, President sa Jerusalem Owners Association, Incorporated. I'm Margaret Palacio, residing in Cebu City, which is located at Inayawan, Cebu City, in Y2. Am I supposed to do this? All the people here. I can feel so nervous. Anyway, I think myself, I can manage it, I can handle it.
Wow.
So, ang atong English, masara ni kakarton, pero mahuman yung magsinyasay na kalata.
My English is only one box, so after this, we're going to use that sign language.
So, the resilience in Cebu City, which is disaster, we are affected, our community, which is the Jerusalem Owners Association. In this problem, the people in our community affected in this disaster na apitahan ni sa mga baha, sa kusog ng mga uwan, ang mga
kadalanan nagubak ang mga riprap nangagubak ug ang mga baha ni adto sa among sulod sa kabalayan.
Well, I will just summarize. So, our communities are very much affected by the different disasters, especially flood, because they don't have also good infrastructures in the area.
The next is affected sad mi sa amuang health, no? Ngayon, sa kawala na mo'y suga atong tumura. Walay suga, walay tubig, ang among mga pagkaon usahay kausa o kaduha sa usa ka adlaw. Kaya klaro panginabuhian.
Okay, so our health is also affected by the mere fact that in terms of utilities, we don't have light, we don't have a good supply of water and other necessities. That is why, and because of poverty, so we were able only to eat once a day, or even sometimes find it difficult to survive with once a day.
Next, ang amo ang mga drainage. Buga na, sirado, parado, stagnant ng amo ang mga katubigan, mga tubig. Unsa may among mahimo ana nga unsay among problema nga among ipaabot para masulbad ang among problema.
So our drainages are clogged. So I'm asking, what are we going to do in such a way that we'll be able to communicate this problem to the concerning authorities?
Sa amo sa pag-atong nakita namo, nakita sa city government ni suroy dito sa among kadalanan sa among lugar. Nakita nila ang mga lubak-lubak na kadalanan. Lubak-lubak unya dunay mga kanang mga nagtambak nga mga basura nga wala na mga tagad, wala na wali. So karon nakita sa city government pagkahuman ni ana finally ila ginang gihimo temporarily sa pagsiminto sa among kalsada bisan wala pa ang drainage na hitabo. Ipasuyupan nila og hugos ngadto sa sapa para buwas itahay. Di ba pa nila og makina para pasuyupan nila para musuyok ngadto padung sa sapa.
So when the authorities of the government visited our communities, they saw what we reported to them. The roads are destroyed and they don't have good drainage. And so immediately they temporarily respond to the situations by cementing a portion of the roads in the community. And they also they pump out the waters in the drainage using the machine to pump it out so that it will not be filled and be clogged.
So naghimo mi nag-organize naman mi sa among association namin monthly meeting which is nag-organize mi. Naghimo mi og unsay among kahimuan sa pagsolusyon sa among problema.
So we have a regular meeting of our organization. So we discuss and find solutions to the problem that we are facing.
Mao to ni adto to ang primary services which is Visayas Primary Services kauban sa mga kadis nga naglantaw kanamo sa among kahimtang unsaon pagsurbat.
So it was during the time that the Visayas Primary Healthcare Services together with CADIS came to our communities and sit with them, listen to them, and finding solutions together.
So gigayran nila unsang paghimo. Sa paglayo nimo gitagaan ni o mga kanang unsaon paggiya. Himuan ni o kanang pag nag-organize ni to kanang nag-organize niya nag-monitoring assessment ang among gihimo ka iadtong tumula para ma-implement ang among katuyuan.
Okay, so The first thing that CADIS and BBHCS have been doing is to assess the area. So what are the needs that they have, the resources that they have, and sit with the community to develop solutions together.
Yun adto sa misa at LGO at local government unit, the NGOs, unsaon paghimo o pagsulbad sa among katuyuan nga mausa kami kung unsa may among kasulbaran. The project goals may sabi kung sa amin.
Okay, so not only with private organizations we work with, but we work also with government entities, the local government units, because they are primarily involved into this crisis.
The barangay officials na coordinate me unsay ayang ikatabang diha sa amuha. So paghimo na anang maong katuyuan, nakahimo na sabi sa among panginahanglan, sabi for example is livelihood kay kami katong tumura nagkinahanglan yung tabang sa among panlawas.
So after doing the assessment, getting to know the various situations of the area, we saw also some gap in terms of livelihood. And that is why we engage also in discussing about what livelihood are we going to organize.
Sa among paghimo o mga trainings, seminars, nakahimo ni sa among areas o mga for example, ganing mga seminars namo kung saan pag-itugi sa mga tao. Nakahimo mi og mga plano. Paghimo sa mga panginahanglan namo sa panlawas. Instead sa mga tambal nga atong paliton, dili na ta mo palit kay naa kay nahimo nga ako arang kaugalingon. Like for example, kadlon meeting. Nakahimo mi ana sa among areas. So meeting, nakahimo mi ana. Awareness, ina sa among areas. Nakaka-IDP sa akin, naka-income mi ana.
So these are our income generating projects. We made candles, we made soap, we made also some ointments. So using the training that is given to them, so they were able to organize themselves and have this livelihood program.
Sa among gihimo karon dili lang kay dili namo ni mahimo kung way suporta sa mga pananato sa local government office sa mga primary Visayas primary healthcare. Pinaagi sa ilang pagsuporta o sa CADIS. Nakahimo ni namo kay kung amo ning usara ang among katuyuan, usara ang magbuhat, dili ka na mahimo namo kung dili kami magkauyod o magkahiusan ng tanan.
Okay, this is how we build your unity. We try to engage with government offices or public authorities. They engage with private organizations like CADIS and BPHCS. And because this is a project that could not be done by themselves, but together. And that is why it builds unity and harmony in the community. That's why they were able to realize the program.
Yes. Muna sa among kahimuhan namong tanan, ang among mga napuhat, nilampo kini. Nilampo diya sa among area. Kami sa paglampo namo, ang ilang ditudlo namo, amo sa ditudlo sa uban. Kung unsaon nila pagbuhat, kung unsay nahimo. Amo ni spread sa lain-lain nga areas, sa lain-lain nga organization.
So whatever we learn and we got from CADIS, BPHCS, and the local government, the teachings and learnings that they have, they share this also into other communities. So they are now the ones also teaching the other communities.
Kung doon na may ubod, kani among gibuhat, naay ni-participate namo. Daghan ang ni-participate namo kay tungod sa among gibuhat, usasan sila na nakagusto sa among binuhatan. Mao ni ang among goal, mahimo kaning goal na vision o mission na magambo ang among communities.
So with the work that we have been doing in the communities, other communities were also inspired because they were able to make it. And so they start also doing on their own. So this is, now they are not trying to build their own vision and mission in these areas together. So that they will be able to face all other crises that will come to these communities.
So hinaot unta, di amo ang gibuhat, di ang sapat partisipar, hindi, mao'y sumbanan sa uban, kagaling mga Chiratos Owners Association, nakahimo mi o mga gibuhaton para sa tanan, dili lang para kanamo kundi para sa uban.
So,
Nagpasalamat sa ni ini kani nag-share ni inyo para palagi pasigar ko kaninyo unsa may among nakuha diha sa komunidad.
so we would like first of all also to thank to each one of us here, to those who are engaging with their activities because they were able to succeed in what they're doing. Secondly, they were able to encourage other communities. That is why they are called the beacons of hope. Ones.
Mao na ni ako ikasulti ninyo og salamat inyong tanan.
Okay, next, we will have Nangka Bill.
May pinunggunda.
English, right? English,
English, saya lang.
Sige.
Sige, may buntag ako guys. Si Lisa, taga ng Tabil Barangay, Cebu City.
So ayan, Lisa from Nangka Bill, Cebu City.
So, ako din president sa Nangka Women's Association sa So, ang among association kay gigabayan sa Building Disaster Resilient Community in Philippines.
Okay, so our homeowners association have 79 members. And as we organize ourselves, we make use of the project as our guide, building resilient community. So we have 300 families in our area. It's a hilly part. It's quite mountainous. You've seen that in the video.
So, ang among ipoyan kay reclamation area Bensy.
So we stayed in a reclamation area. So it's a common thing here in the urban
Relocation.
So under kuan siya
relocation area.
relocation area kan gidimulis sa gobyerno. Example sa kami, gikan sa Mambaling, ang story na ni sa among gikan sa Mambaling sa syudad ba, kanang commercial. So nami dito sa Mambaling, so nalimulis mi atong panahon na tubig dagat. Tubig dagat ang gitamukan og yuta para na tungtong among balay. So nabot na si
So
so
we were
kato panahon na so kanang residential area. So, pag-abot na sa SM, so nahimo na siya commercial, so diha na nahatabo nga nalimulis jud ang among balay.
okay. We come from a displaced communities. We were displaced because of the new commercial establishment that has been constructed in our area. It's a huge commercial establishment. That is why we were evicted and forced to go to a relocation area where they are now staying.
So, digit sa yun ang among kainta atong panahon na sa limulis na aming mga struggle o nasa aming mga pagigdisog. So, nag-atong dyan sa National Housing Authority nga nangayo mi og relocation.
We really fight for the displacement that happened, the eviction, because it was not really that easy. It's very, very difficult. And they have to appeal to the government authorities and go to other influential people so that their cause will be heard.
So, pag-ato na mo dito sa National Authority, dito namin nakibaw nga na-relocation nga gihatag sa gobyerno, so nilisat sa yun. So, balik sa City Hall, dito na nanawag sa National Housing Authority, paingon na sa City Hall nga ihatagan ng relocation mao na ang bukid.
So we were able to get in touch with the National Housing Authority That's the agency of the government who looks after the urban settlers. And we came to know that there is a relocation area. But then when we started really looking at that, it's not that easy. So we have to go to the city government, appeal again, so that we will be able to get a portion of that relocation area dedicated for those who are being displaced in Mangbaling.
So dili sad sayo nang ato iko ang si gobyerno iko na sad si LGU nga nagsukod. Bukid siya, iko na siya nagsukod sa area pag ato na mo dagko kay kahoy, dagko kay tanong, walay dalan, walay balay, walay tubig, o street lighting. So wala yun. So kami na ang nag-provide.
So indeed, the city government responded. They went to the relocation site, they measured the land area, but went only to find out that that hilly part, that mountainside, is full of trees. And it's quite difficult to build our houses in that because that is a forested area. But that is only what the government had done. They measured and then that's it.
So mao na amo ang kahimtang sa relocation kanang project ni sa disaster. Example sa sunog, kay may dalan, sa landslide, kung makuha, dagko kay bato matagag sa amo kay namin gibuko sa bukid. So, for example, so kanang patong panahon sa Bagyo sa 2021, lisod jud among kahimtang ato. Kay ngano kanang sinisdos ang dana sa among panimalay, wala lang, wala na mi ato, wala na bungkong, wala tubig atong panahon na lisod jud among kahimtang atong sa kalamidad atong panahon na sa Bagyo. So, nagpasalamat kami karon nga naa mo ang Visayas Primary Healthcare na natabangan mi nila about sa naa sila mga ng taktika na nagtabang ka namo, na sila mga seminar na gihatag ka namo, seminar sa disaster, sa livelihood o sa panglawas o nami mga team meeting nga nag-guide sa amo nga mag-ato mi sa LGU o dito mi nga nami mga sample nga giseminar sa nila sa nag-ato sa sila sa kanang Bureau of Fire nga nagtutuluan sa nila seminar bahin sa kung masunog na actual nga dito na ang paglinabangay kung organisado na ka kay kung ingon ko na ko nagsunog na ay magpam sa inyong balay na sa pagtawag sa bumbero.
Okay, so when we went to the relocation site, there were no electricities, no access to water. So technically, we don't have anything for us to use for our daily needs. And besides, there are no roads, and it's a hilly part. It's quite dangerous, and it's a hazard-prone area also because it's quite high the mountain, and they are living at the foothills, and there are a lot of big stones up there. So it will roll down when there is a strong flood or rain, and of course, all those houses living down there, they might be impacted. And so, just to continue, taas ng buhay tayo. So, we came to know and met the Visayas Primary Health Care. And they assisted us in this area. They gave some training because one of their primary concerns is health. And so, they were trained how to take care of the health of the community, the health of the individual. You have seen that in the video. They are just like the barefoot doctors, no? They come with a stethoscope. No? They are not trained in the medical schools. And yet, because of the training given by BPLCS, they were empowered and they started taking care of their communities. They did also livelihood. So they start engaging also with skills training for their livelihood. So a lot of things had been done in the area, and that helped us to facilitate the change that we want in that community. What's important, mas taas ko nito ako yung Sige ate.
Also, so na-seminar sa niya about sa
ako di si Grace, nagpasalamat ko sa tanan na nakaroon o welcome sa tanan atong mga bisita.
Okay, I am Grace. Welcome to everybody.
Kaya i-share lang ako ang pagtabang sa PCE, primary health, paghatag og mga seminars about sa natong laudatisi o kung saon ang pagtubag sa mga panginahanglan sa panglawas, yung ana, ilamig gitagaan sa akong pagkuha og mga vital sign kay ang amo kong area kanang layo mi sa kanang ospital o niya. Kinahanglan kung na ay mga in case emergency na kami makatubag, ilamig ituluan sa una mo pagtubag sa mga panginahanglan.
So one of the also another that PPNCS taught us together with Cadiz and Cavite Task Force Philippines is Dilaw Datu C, which I have been telling a while during in my presentation. So the Laudato Si is a very important document of the church that is already being popularized, and they are one of those who have been trained. So it's actually how you care for the common home, which is our environment, the community, and everything in our common home. So they are trained also to protect our common home. The common home, the Laudato Si, that common home is actually is the kind of economist. So common home is economist. That's the meaning. So the day-to-day undertakings of the people in the community, so they are taught on how to evaluate and to care for it and sustain that one, because this is the one that would help us save a lot of lives when it comes to disaster. We are also being taught on health concerns, on like taking the vital signs, because we're very far from the hospitals. So whenever there are medical emergencies in the area, the hospital is too far for us and we don't have easy access to these services. That is why within the community, there are people who are trained and they are doing this regular visitation, not only when they are sick, but the regular visitation of the different families in the community to see if their health is okay.
Para sa to, ang ma-share na ko din, ang katong pagtugod sa among women's, nagkitabi sa barangay council para po ma-recognize kaya na aming women's. In case kung na ay mga kalamidad, kami ma-priority nila. So, gihimo nila, seminar ni, nag-demo sila o kanang sa about sa fire, ituluan ni usaon pagtubag na mo kung in case na ay sunog kay kami, doon jud mi sa himun-anan nga pagkitabo.
So we engage also with the local authorities so that our women organization, the community, will be recognized, because this is very important. Otherwise, if you're not recognized, you will not be able to access the services that the government is doing. So with that recognition, so the government is collaborating with them, just like the 5 drill hazards that they have been doing in the communities. You have seen in the video, they taught how to use the fire extinguisher and what to do when there's a fire, because this is really a real fire hazard communities.
Tingnan na ko taas ko, taas na kayo natin, no?
Okay, mas taas na ginawa mo isot eh. So,
Plano na ako karon nga maghabi gahapon kami sa LGU, magparayo lang mga pag-adto sa mga sa liwok, di ba? Sa gobyerno kay para sa amo ang kasiguruhan sa among pagpuyo. So sa dalan sa namo, amo ang pagtinabangay sa among kababayan dito nga malibilak amo ang dalan nga dili na dali mga ano ang mga boulders sa amo tungod kay pakilit man wala man saktong nga dalan. So kung hinaot unta ang padayon ng amo ang programa sa mga panglawas, sa livelihood o sa disaster. O daghang salamat sa taga-Cadiz o sa tanan nga staff sa Visayas Primary Healthcare. Sa dili man sayon ang pag-organize namo, lisod man naagi hapon mo nagtapang namo.
So until now, we continue to engage with the local government because these are very, very important. Okay. So now that we know how to engage and to lobby with the local government, so the more we are strengthened right now. So I would like also to take this opportunity to thank BPHCS and Cadiz, because if not because of them, we will never reach such a kind of level that we are now as a women country. Daghang kayong salamat. Hindi ka ba nagulas? Okay, let me share. Okay, so while they're still thinking, just to show you that engaging in building resilience or resilience building, there are three important actors. One is, and the primary actor is the community itself. You see how they are empowered now? They know that they have their own resources. After doing some community asset assessment, they're able to discover that we have the resources. The primary resources in this community, the Women Association. In the kitchen or in the laundry, but they can be front movers of change in the community because they believe that they can be truly an agent in community. Second, private organizations, non-government organizations, like the PPNCS, like all other organizations, they should be also engaged. Because the issue that we are facing here is not a simple issue. It's not just they don't have road. It's not just that they don't have life. It's an interlink of different issues within the community. As you have seen in my presentation, that they are all interconnected. And if we don't work together, we will not be able to resolve the problems that we have. So, private organization. And the third is the government organization, the local government units. Because, in a way, they are the primary responsible for the welfare of these people. Okay? They are being elected to such a position by the people to deliver the services that belongs to the government and it belongs to the people. So they engage with local authorities. This triple engagement of actors is, in a way, a foundation of what resilience building is all about. We need to engage these people because the work that we have been doing is not just a simple work, but it is a big task to do because when you go there to the community to do assessment, you will see that this problem is connected to that problem. This problem is connected to this one. But if you look at only, like, these people are hungry, so you provide food. You are just looking at the food provision. But you are not asking, why is it that these people, they don't have food? So, because they don't have jobs. Why they don't have jobs? So all these things we have to see and try to analyze and see what could be the best solution. So far, what we found here is to organize and strengthen the women communities. Now, they are now moving forward after 2 years. Okay, do we have questions addressed to them, not to me? Okay, Ay, ang dami tayo kita na mutubag kasi Okay, do you have questions? Reflections? Oh, yes. Father Mars, you got from Taiwan. He's from the public Puhon.
Salamat po na kita sa inyong lingkod ng mga department mo. Kaya sa tinuray, ang solusyon kung itatao, nakita na po ang solusyon sa inyong mga problema na sa inyong mga kamot. Nakita na po kanina nga pamaagi, hindi sa yun. Kaya kung magtagstag sa hindi pa kalimyo. Pura ba kaya makahatag akong resulta. Pura kung uusap mga gamit ito pag-review sa kanilang sa inyo. Mga tutong silindi, hindi na mo makahindo kung sa kayo sana. Pero nagkakatapos na. So, kung sa man ang inyong kasinatian karon nga di-organize mo sa Science Health Task. Okay. Kung sa may mga laking lakang, kaya yung pagkain mo ko, kaya inyo makita ang masolusyonan kita na ang mga problema. Kumana ba, kutubra pa mo dito sa ilang seminar, na may mga tanang tao na kami tabang, kung nag-iusan ba nila ibang komunitay, nga masolusyonan.
Kami, nanamong
So, maybe questions, just to, so Father Vaz has been asking, how is it now? No? What's your next, steps to do then, to strengthen this community?
kami, padayon gihapon may nag-iusa ang tumong namo na daghan ang among mapasabot aron sila pud ma-encourage kung unsay among katuyuan sa among komunidad, kung dili ang pagtabang sa mga panginahanglanon ilabi na sa kababayan. Kami ang Habis karon lisod tanan kung ako'y duha ka estudyante pero dili sapat ang panginabuhian kay pinaki naman ang minimum niya duha akong college na ako ko'y senior high napay akong apo nasa kuha so dili gyud enough so dapat magtinabangay aron makabuot ang tinuod nga sweldo nga makabuhi sa ako kay lisod is panginabuhian.
So we are continuing our struggle, with the community. We continue to sensitize the people who should be involved into this work. And we continue to conscientize others also that they will join this cause. Because life is not that easy. I myself, I have also 2 children. Some of them, they are also going now to studies and in different levels. And the inflation that we have here right now in this country is too much that we cannot even afford to buy the basic necessities. So how are we going to survive in this situation? And that is why we persist in our struggle, because we believe that something in the end will take place and a change that we want will happen in our communities. Other questions? Okay, Father Dan.
Daghang salamat sa inyong inspirasyon buhat sa inyong pagmamahal sa community. Thank you so much for your inspiration and for your work of love, dear community. I'd just like to ask something. I've been also in different works, when humanitarian work and community based. I always appreciate na ako ang work ng mga babae, the women power. March is Women's Month.
Women's Month.
Yes.
Pero sa imong community, asa ang mga lalaki? How can we encourage ang mga lalaki na ma-involve sa health? Sa health, dili sa health. Because when you talk about health, usually, it's all about women's work. Okay? Having that principle that women are more nurturing, but we also need men to be part of the community. What's happening sa mga lalaki ba sa yung community? At paano nato ma-motivate mga bana ninyo na mag-involve sa project?
So how can we motivate your husbands to get involved into this cause? The men, the community. Kasi mag-rally tayo yung
Ito na mo ang mga paris ba? Nagtrabaho, naasa, labi na namin sa inayawan, ang among trabaho niya is mga scavengers. No, walay panang permanente nga trabaho driver sa e-bike. What you say ito na naaming igahin nga funding pati sa amo ang panginahanglan. Kundi o dili nimo mo mangamas among pangamas among panginabuhian dili kita himo og pagwarta. O labi na sa ako manindar ko burbur, manindar ko puto. Yuda ko yung ko. Laban lang. Ikaw ako na nakasurvive ko. Ato sila, ako di student na usap, nakakuha na ko ka ng kurso. Pero subok lang pala doon ko kay nabinyo man sa sila. Wala na ako nakakuha kay sana sila yung pamilya. Pero samtang ako, kusog pa ako ang napakoy kusog. Wala ko nagsabi nila kung dili. Nangita ko ako ang panginabuhi, panginahanglan. Dili lang sa akong pamilya sa akong mga kundi ato na lang ko sa akong mga apo. Maorgi na akong iba na yung tatay panlawas na maayo para makasugako ta sa pangadaw-adaw na akong mapaghinanglan.
So the men in the community, the husband, our husband, how many husbands we have? So the men in our community, I'm also people. They are primarily engaged in working. Some of them work as drivers, some of them work as carpenters, and they have to do that every day because we need to survive. Okay? And women, we try also to assist and help them in terms of their daily sustenance of their own according to their capacities. But the role of men, I primarily is working. No? They are the one engaged in the different kinds of work. So I myself, I don't have a husband anymore, so it's available. So I myself, I have to raise 7 children. Luckily, they were able to graduate. Okay? With the struggles that I had, I was able to guide them until such a moment that they graduate. Unfortunately, some of them get married, so they could not help me, and my family because they have their new family. But this is how the struggle that we have, we were able to survive.
Thank you.
Hindi na mag-rally nila. Basta magbutman nila. Okay? Yes, Chibet.
This is not a question, but I would just like to show my appreciation to you guys. As a woman of my generation, I am so moved with your resilience and your willpower to stand in your community. And at this stage, like as what Tita said, that she's already widowed and then she had 7 children that she needs to raise. Imagine how hard is that? And then living in that kind of community that every day is like a struggle, is a matter of survival. And I would like to say thank you for inspiring us all here. Not just only me, but I think all of the community members of Cadis here are all moved. We're all moved by your stories and stories of your resilience and very inspiring. Thank you so much.
Simple lang. Okay? I'm really inspired by your witness. Women of power, you are indeed true. In a simple nga translation to English mo po na ako. They can support them with French. They can understand perfectly English. So, kakong inspirasyon kamo sa Lisa. The microphone is there. Lisa is from Taiwan. The other one is from Australia. Yes, Lisa, go on. Okay, other Mars. Words are all. Makatandog kayo ang inyong mga pagpaampit. Natandog dili lang among mga balatian, usab ang among pagkatawag kaugalingon. Kay maning kamao ba day kung Bisaya ko. I'm learning now to speak Bisaya. Kaya hindi ako Bisaya, Butsulano ako. Okay, so anything else?
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. No. Just thank you. Thank you very much. Salamat.
Si Juliana, Italiana na siya, no? Nakakapo na siya ng salamat. Thank you so much. Okay, so I think we'll pause for the lunch break, correct? Oh, what's next?
That's great.
Oh, lunch break. We still have record, I think. Lunch break muna. Okay. So, thank you. And we still got three. Going forward to this. Sorry. But I think there's still no more. Only one. Please be here at 2 o'clock.